It's been no secret, how much love I, have for Miami Heat growing up and D Wade. So this is definitely a full circle moment, and I'm just happy to be back on that stage again in the playoff races and stuff like that. So.
Ahead and you see how far Terry Rozier is. Whoo! Throws it.
So even though it was not for Damian Lillard, the Miami Heat finally made their big trade for a score force point guard, shooting guard, whatever you want to consider him. Terry Rozier is officially a member of the Miami Heat after the franchise traded away Kyle Lowry and a 2027 lottery protected first round pick that will turn into a 2028 unprotected pick if it does not convey. Caleb, the Miami Heat, they've been a team that time and time again, everybody has kind of looked them off and then they prove everyone wrong once it comes to the playoffs. But we definitely saw that they lost some key guys. When it comes to the postseason, they have trouble scoring the ball at times. Jimmy Butler is only getting older. And Miami, they traded away someone who has championship experience, but kind of wasn't contributing as much as they would have liked. What's your immediate reaction to this move, my guy?
Immediate reaction, I like it. I really do. Terry Rozier, he's been on my fantasy team actually, so I've known the full benefits of a career season for him. He's putting up 23 points, 4 rebounds, and nearly 7 assists, which is a career high for him. So getting to see him on a more competitive roster with a playoff team in Miami as opposed to sort of a bottom feeder in Charlotte, I really like the fit, and just taking away some of that on-ball responsibility, especially for the playoffs, for Jimmy and Bam, I think that's going to be really important for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always awesome when you're able to add a guard of his caliber, someone that in the NBA you can never score too many points. There's a notion going on around right now that he's been in Charlotte for too long and that he's been putting up pretty good stats on a team that hasn't won too much. But, I mean, when you put players under someone like Eric Spoelstra, when you surround him with a Jimmy Butler, with the Bam Adebayo, guys who are workhorses, you've seen what they've been able to do with Jaime Jaquez in his first official NBA season. You definitely have to like this move. So, yeah, welcome back to the show, guys. It's trade season. We have about 3 more weeks. It's getting really, really hot until the trade deadline. So before we get into all the details about this trade and, kind of break it down and see who won and see what other moves could be made, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, hit that notification bell. We're going to be coming in hot with all these rumors. Just before we started recording, I was watching the Laker-Clipper game, and it's looking like TNT leaked that Doc Rivers is officially in the works to become the Milwaukee Bucks' next head coach. That's Caleb's favorite team. So you guys drop in the comments. Let us know what you think those early reports before Shams and Woj actually confirmed the deal. But, yeah, guys, trade season. We just went over the most recent trade with Pascal Siakam being moved to the Indiana Pacers. That video is over here, so check that out. But, yeah, now we have Scary Terry. I mean, Caleb, I remember watching Scary Terry in Boston going to work. He was going at it with a number of players in the postseason. And when Kyrie Irving went down, he was the guy that was stepping up along with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and really taking the lead. And, you can't blame him for wanting to get his money, wanting to get out of there once things started going south. But, I mean, just taking a look at what he was able to do in Charlotte, even though he was hooping and he was getting his numbers in those high teens and going into the 20s, the Hornets, they weren't seeing a whole lot of success. We know they haven't made the playoffs since 2016 when we had those Kemba Walker days. But they did make the play-in tournament in back-to-back seasons in 2021 and 2022. But it's safe to say that when they got to the big stage, they did not perform. Because in 2021, when they played against the Indiana Pacers, they lost 144 to 117. And then you fast forward to 2022, and they lost 132 to 103. Now, you already kind of touched on how he's going to be in a whole different situation. He's going to be still in the Eastern Conference, but on a team that has seen success after success, even after you lost a franchise player and a generational talent in LeBron James. So, yeah, you talked a little bit, Caleb, about how he's able to handle the ball, how he's able to get to the rim and, kind of score at all 3 levels. But he's going to be playing next to a Tyler Hero, who I think they have pretty similar skill sets when you take a look at what they do on the court. How do you think that those two specifically are going to mesh together?
I think you can definitely stick those two in a closing lineup together now, especially considering Hero. He's shooting 40% from 3 this season, averaging the highest points per game on Miami as well, at 22. Surprisingly ahead of Bam and Jimmy. And then you add Terry Rozier's scoring punch. This season he's shooting 36% from 3 on 8 attempts, so high volume. We always like to see that. And it's definitely an interesting fit because Tyler Hero was obviously out for that playoff run. and he got injured a bit this season to start out as well. So putting Terry out there, maybe to win some regular season games, but more importantly for the playoffs, I think it could be a pretty decent fit as opposed to maybe, let's say, a Duncan Robinson, who we know isn't the best on defense, but he's also improved this season in lieu of Gabe Vincent and Max Strus being off the team from free agency. So they just have a lot of interesting pieces around Jimmy and Bam. And we've said it before, we'll say it again. Coach Spo, obviously the best in the league, just got a new extension over 8 years, I think 120 million. So shout out to him for that bag. But I know firsthand as a Milwaukee Bucks fan, that man and that team, it doesn't matter what seed they are, what players that they have, they're going to be forced in the playoffs. And adding Terry Rozier to this core simply just adds to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, before we get into a little bit more about Scary Terry and how he's gonna be looking in Miami, let's show some love to Mr. Kyle Lowry real quick. Like you were talking about me and you were talking about all the time, when you look at guys who are loyal to their franchise, who stuck with them through thick and thin. He literally saw his best friend get traded to a different franchise. And they teamed up with Kawhi Leonard in that first year together. They got some special things done, brought that title back in 2019 to the Sixth. So shout out Kyle Lowry. Moved over to the Miami Heat, got to team up with Jimmy Butler. I definitely don't think that they make that finals appearance last season if it wasn't for the work that he was putting in all year, really mentoring Gabe Vincent under his wing and all those young guys. And I mean, when you take a look at Heat culture, people like to make fun of him, say that he wasn't in shape, say that he wasn't, living up to that body fat percentage that the Miami Heat have historically held their players to. But I mean, his leadership and his mentorship is nothing to be mocked at, nothing to be gawked at. So shout out Kyle Lowry. Excited to see where he's going to end up next, because I don't think Charlotte's going to keep him, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, you take a look at Miami, they have a lot of dudes that like to handle the ball. Obviously Duncan Robinson has transformed into a whole different player this year. He's getting to the rim better than ever. He's holding his own on defense. He's still shooting, which is what landed him that big bag in the first place. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you have Jaime Jaquez, who, I mean, he just comes in. He's like a spark plug. That dude, you put him in the low post, you put him in the mid range, you let him bring the ball up, go block to block. He's incredible. But Scary Terry is someone that he has kind of butted heads with teammates in the past. There's even been times in Charlotte where all those dudes were super, super close. But LaMelo Ball is someone that is breaking out, becoming a premier young player in the league. And even though they did play well together numbers-wise, the Charlotte Hornets noticed that LaMelo Ball was playing his best ball when he had the ball in his hands. That was a whole lot of balls right there, pause. So, Caleb, just take a look at the Miami Heat as a whole. Do you think Scary Terry could be someone that they're going to look to get shots in the clutch when the game is close? And do you think that he'll be that go-to option in the end? Because obviously you have Jimmy Butler, who he turns it up in the playoffs, but we know that he kind of does put those brakes on a little bit during the regular season. Do you think that he's going to be able to push this team up to a higher seed and, like I said, be that go-to option when games get close?
I think when you definitely have a go-to scorer like Terry is looking to be, granted, I think obviously scoring is going to go down with better teammates around him, less chances to score the ball, obviously. But when you think of a guy who is pretty good in the mid-range, like I said, pretty good from three as well this season, and he can get to the rim pretty well, just either with his float game or getting to the free throw line. He's consistently shown a penchant to score the basketball. And when you think about just a bad Hornets team, some of the brightest moments this season have been with Terry Rozier. Just hitting clutch shots down the stretch. And I know it hasn't really amounted to a lot of wins, but the few that they do have, they can honestly thank Terry Rozier for a lot of them. So when you think about Jimmy Butler, historically, he's not the best three-point shooter at all.
Yeah.
He likes to operate more in the mid-post and get to the free throw line. That's more of his bread and butter. Bam Adebayo, he's shown to space a little bit in the past, but again, not going to be your primary objective with him. He obviously likes to bang down low and clean up the offensive glass, as well as get to his mid-post game. But when you think about Terry Rozier, just a three-level scorer who can do all three of those things and really space the floor for you, I think that's going to be really effective for their offense. And I think it's going to help them more in the regular season, although we've kind of established that Miami doesn't really care about that seeding because they'll play through anybody. But for what it's worth, like right now, I think it definitely helps them stay above that play-in range. So I think this really solidified them as either like that 4 through 6 range, I think, right behind Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia for me.
Yeah, and with Terry Rozier joining the Miami Heat, I see a lot of NBA fans saying that his garbage numbers in Charlotte are not going to necessarily transfer the best over to the Miami Heat. But, I mean, I take a look at the teammates that he was playing with at times. He's on a super, super young team, a team that has been rebuilding, like I said, since 2016. And his other ball handling mate, his backcourt mate, LaMelo Ball, has missed a good amount of time this year. So a lot of the time, it was just Terry Rozier and Brandon Miller sharing the ball. Brandon Miller is still just a rookie. And when you take a look at Terry Rozier's number this year, 23 points per game. He's shooting around 45% from the field and 36% from three. Caleb, I mean, these NBA fans, do they really not think that when he's with much better players than Miami Heat, when you have a Jimmy Butler, when you have a Jaime Jaquez, when you have a Duncan Robinson, a Tyler Hero, all these guys, they really don't think that, yeah, maybe Terry Rozier isn't going to score as many points as he was on the Charlotte Hornets. Maybe he's not going to get as many shot attempts, but, I mean, the dude is probably going to be more efficient. He's probably going to be happier than he's been in a while. I mean, with the Boston Celtics, he was getting his run, and he went on that stretch where he kind of did want his own team, and that's what kind of led to him being okay with being moved. But, I mean, yeah, you take a look at this Miami Heat squad, and like I said, it's someone that we just can't sleep on. Like, the moves were there. They were looking at number guys like Donovan Mitchell. I know they were always looking at Bradley Beal. It seemed like they were always looking for that other backcourt star, that guy that maybe Tyler Hero could get moved in. But a big W here is that Tyler Hero is staying on your team ultimately. I mean, Kyle Lowry, like I said, shout out to Kyle Lowry, one of the best vets in the entire league and championship pedigree. But, I mean, Caleb, do you even think the Miami Heat are tripping about moving that 2027 pick?
I mean, it does get a bit scary just because Jimmy is in his mid-30s, so you don't know how his decline is going to show or how rapidly it might show. Obviously, injuries have been a problem for him in the regular season and even in the playoffs last year with that ankle in the Knicks series that obviously affected his play against the Nuggets in the finals. Didn't matter too much of getting through the East, but obviously on the road to a championship, you only got one game off of them. But in terms of moving Lowry in the efforts to do this, he was only putting up 8 points and 4 assists, 1 steal a game, 39% from three on limited attempts, which is nice, but he's 37. So he wasn't necessarily going to be there for the long haul. And with the reports about, not meeting weight and sort of the conditioning, and there were already rumors last year at the trade deadline that he could have gotten moved. Simply Pat Riley fell asleep at the wheel, as we all know.
He has a couple times.
A couple. I mean, he's 80. Give him a break, But
hey, he still got the slick back though. Shout out Pat Riley with that slick back.
Armani suits and everything. He still got it. But I mean, when you think about trading a 37-year-old and a 27 first-round pick that could be a 28, depending on how that conveys, I don't think you lose too much sleep over it. Just considering this is your window. This is what you signed Jimmy Butler for in the 2019 offseason. And ever since you've had him, like, you think about it, 2020, you made the finals. 2021, probably off of lack of rest due to COVID season and being rushed back in 21, you get swept in the first round, but you still made the playoffs. 2022, you were the number 1 seed, and you were one Jimmy Butler shot away from the finals again. And then last year, you made the finals as well. So when you think about the core that you have with Jimmy and Bam, I get it's not Dame. He obviously went to Milwaukee, and a lot of Heat fans were upset about that because they originally miffed on Bradley Beal to try and move for Dame. That was the thought. It's not Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, he's in Cleveland, and we've talked about him maybe going to New York in the offseason. Still remains to be seen there. But, I mean, a guy like Terry Rozier, that's not someone to necessarily neglect. I mean, sure, high point totals and, assists efficiency, it's not necessarily great when it's on a losing team like Charlotte, especially one that's been bad for so long and have no real sense of direction. I mean, you got LaMelo, who's the young player. You drafted Brandon Miller. He looks promising. You have Mark Williams, who decent big man out of Duke, but he's been hurt for a lot of this season. So it's kind of just gone downhill, as well as LaMelo having an injury. So Terry's been your only real bright spot. I know that they have vets like Gordon Hayward, who also could get bought out, and alongside Lowry, I now expect that to be the result. But when you think about Terry Rozier, he's not going to score more than 23. I guarantee you that on this team. But what he will do, he's going to provide an open three-point shooter, someone who's willing to take a shot, and someone who could drive the basketball and take some pressure off of Jimmy and Bam while they sort through the grind of an 82-game regular season. So I really like the move, honestly. And for Charlotte's side, I know you're going to touch on it later. I feel like, they kind of got what they wanted to in that 27 first round pick. So, yeah.
No, definitely great points over there, Caleb. And I think something that I want to bring up is that, yeah, the Charlotte Hornets, they haven't quite been able to put everything together, but I do think that they are really good at identifying talent and bringing in guys that could play good ball. And, unfortunately, due to injuries and some off court stuff, they haven't had their full roster together all the time. But someone that I want to look at in the situation where we're talking about how both of us think that Terry Rozier is going to be good in Miami, and it's not just a service of him benefiting on being on a bad team in Charlotte. I take a look at Kyle Lowry, who he put up career highs last year in Charlotte, and he was struggling to find a team to sign him this offseason. It was literally weeks before training camp that the Philadelphia 76ers offered him a vet minimum deal after he averaged 20 points last year, and he led the Charlotte Hornets in scoring. And now he's on Philly, one of the best teams in the league, and he's playing his role behind Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, scoring 13 points a game, shooting 37% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. So, I mean, the dude is putting in work. He's showing that even though he was on Charlotte last year and they weren't winning games, that he's still a very serviceable NBA player. And I think Terry Rozier is going to be able to do just that for the Miami Heat. So I'm pretty excited to see how this uplifts them in their conference and how they're able to compete with the likes of Milwaukee and Boston, Philly, and now that Indiana has Siakam. So it's going to be exciting. Rozier still has some good years of basketball ahead of him, and he's someone that I've always said is an underappreciated player. Would you agree with that, Caleb? Do you think he's not always gotten the love he deserves because he's been in Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, when you got these guys in smaller markets and teams that aren't necessarily winning, I mean, I think Pascal's another example of that, just because Toronto hasn't necessarily been too great. But when you think about these guys in terms of underappreciation, I think Terry Rozier is definitely on that list, just because I've consistently seen him in Charlotte put up decent numbers. And, I will never fault a player for chasing the bag. You only got so many years left in your career, and you got to make as much money as possible. That's some guys' MO. Some guys want championships. Some guys want to make as much money in the NBA while they can. And, either path is respectable for me. But Terry Rozier is always a guy that I thought would be a trade target. And
Yep.
rumors necessarily haven't circulated around him up until recently. I know that the Heat and Hornets were in talks. I believe Shams reported that a potential deal could come, I believe this week. And lo and behold, it happened. So, you think about that 2018 playoff run that he had. Kyrie's hurt, and Hayward is not necessarily the same from his leg injury, and obviously he's in Charlotte now as well. But the way he single-handedly dominated Eric Bledsoe in that series, I know it very well, just because that crossover on the right wing with a couple seconds left in game one of that series, and then he proceeds to call him Drew Bledsoe. Yeah, I mean, that type of moment, it gives you a level of confidence as a player. And, he's definitely shown that confidence through and through for sure. Things in Boston obviously didn't work out. And you mentioned he did want his own team. But now coming back to a playoff contender, I could definitely see, not just expectations rise for him for his production, but also I think his play could meet that standard as well in Miami. So he's super underappreciated, but I think more people are going to see him in the national spotlight now for a better team.
Definitely, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Hopefully, Miami can make one of their runs that we become so accustomed to. But on the topic of underappreciated players, I posted a poll the other day on my Instagram story. Make sure you go follow me at NoisMindWell so you can be a part of our show, enter your own thoughts, and we're going to be reacting to them every single video. So I asked my followers, who do you think is the most underappreciated player in the NBA right now? And first off, we have Tyree Lane. He answered Ant-Man. So, I mean, Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, he just had a crazy highlight the other day throwing the ball off the backboard to himself. But Caleb, both of us were talking during that game, and yeah, it was just full of highlights. That dude, he's one of the most athletic players in the league right now, and only 22 years old. I can't believe it, because he's literally the face of the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. After they had guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Ant-Man has just come in there and fully taking it by the grasp, and he's been going crazy. I know that the NBA is kind of pitting him against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now, so pretty excited. What do you think about that take?
Yeah, I mean, very exciting out west. I know that they had a game recently, and he's talking about his free throws and how it's really hard to play them while they're fouling. I know that Ant missed 3 free throws down the stretch as well for that game. So maybe don't talk too much while you're ahead, because you think about Shai. He's a first team All NBA guy last year, MVP candidate this year. What they've done, I believe they're tied for the first seed now again. After tonight's game, Jalen Williams just hit a game winner against Portland. Very impressive stuff.
He looks scarily like Shai on that play.
Yeah, very scary what they got in OKC for sure. But when you talk about Anthony Edwards, only 22 years old, but his first 2 playoff runs, you can see he's definitely a playoff riser for sure. hitting that clutch shot to ensure that the Timberwolves got at least one game against the Nuggets last season. Super impressive stuff. And obviously the Nuggets have given them credit, saying that the Minnesota Timberwolves were the toughest team for them to win, or on road to winning that championship. So when you think about Anthony Edwards, I know that Karl-Anthony Towns is making headlines. 62-point game. Unfortunately, they lost to the Hornets. Chris Finch, their head coach, had a lot to say about that game as well. But when you think about Anthony Edwards, clearly the best player on that team. And yeah, I mean, for the 1 seed in the West and for him to get no real MVP buzz, obviously he's going to be an all-star reserve, in my opinion, once again. But yeah, kind of surprising. But yeah, Anthony Edwards definitely one of the ones that are next up in this league.
100%. Anthony, we're like so spoiled. We're going to be able to watch him for like the next 10, 12 years. Super excited for that. Next up, we have the GOAT, Vivian Davi. She said Jalen Brunson. I mean, yeah, what he's been doing out in New York. Me and you, Caleb, we talked a couple times about doing a video just based on what he's been able to accomplish this season, despite all the comments about his size, despite that pressure of playing in the Big Apple when they haven't seen success in so long. But, you know, he made his way over there with all the connections that he had with the CAA and people within the franchise. So it's awesome to see. I think just that old school style play where he's a little dude going in the post and using his body and, you know, playing with a lot of heart. That heart over hype mentality is going to get me every single time. And the Knicks, they haven't had their best stretch to start off the year, but after making that OG Anunoby move, they've been a sight to see, and Brunson has continued to be the head of that dragon right there.
Yeah, Brunson, I think, also deserves all-star nod this season, just for the way he's been playing. I think he's been one of the best 5 guards in the East. I don't think he can sort of deny him of that. And when you think about his size, you know, the comments that Becky Hammond made earlier in the season, we've been over that. I believe he responded with like a 50-point game in Phoenix. So he shut that up pretty quick. But when you think about the Knicks in context, with OG Anunoby, by the way, they are riding him like a horse. I believe it's like 43 minutes and 3 straight games.
43,
yeah. Tibbs is not letting that man rest for anything. But when you think about how they've done under Brunson, I believe he played all 48 minutes in the playoff game to force a game 6 last year against the Heat as well. So again, like you mentioned, that heart over height, definitely one of the best players in the East, and definitely someone that deserves a bit more love. Full-on superstar, in my opinion.
Facts. Shout out Brunson right there. Next up, we have at Long Guy Mike. He said Grayson Allen. This is someone that I really do want to talk about because when the Phoenix Suns signed him, I took a look at that report on my phone. I was like, he is going to be something for them because not only can he shoot the ball, not only can he defend, but he brings that grit. He's been in the headlines a number of times, sometimes for the wrong reasons, making some dirty plays. But, you know, in the NBA, you need those dudes that are willing to put their body on the line for their teammates. And this season, he's averaging a career high in points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage. And he's shooting 90% from the free throw line. So as of a few days ago, I'm not sure how updated these stats are. He's the only member of the 50-40-90 club right now. And he's leading the league in 3-point percentage. Dude's just going crazy on the Phoenix Suns. He's been a bright spot for them when they had so many injuries and they were underperforming to start the year. So, I mean, Caleb, you know, you're a big college basketball guy too. So, you know, Grayson Allen made his name over with Duke. So, I mean, what do you think about seeing him kind of pan out in the NBA right now?
Yeah, I mean, seeing him on Duke, obviously he was a key contributor to that national title championship in 2015. I believe it was him in the second half that really drove home that win against Wisconsin for them. Stayed all 4 years, didn't come out early in the draft. Was on the Jazz for a bit, came to the Grizzlies, showed some promise there on some young teams. And then he gets traded to Milwaukee. And for me, the antics and sort of the tripping and, you know, being a dirty player, I know Bulls fans back in the day were not necessarily happy with him, thanks to like an Alex Caruso incident where I believe Caruso actually broke his wrist on that.
He did, yeah. He missed some time. Right after Zell got hurt too.
Yeah, but strictly from a player profile perspective, with Milwaukee, he was decent as a team defender, and his main sort of job there was hit the open 3 and, you know, score a bit on and play some defense, and he did that job pretty well. Obviously, being asked to do more in 2022 with Chris Middleton out didn't necessarily pan out. None of our shooters that year were really great. I believe Wesley Matthews and you know, Drew Holiday wasn't great in that game either. Grant Williams gamed us. We're not going to talk about it. And then 2023, obviously his last play with the Milwaukee Bucks in that overtime is that sort of failed Euro step layup, and time expires and the optics didn't look good But with a fresh start in the result of that Damian Lillard Drew Holiday trade, he gets shipped out to Phoenix with Yusuf Nurkic, and as a part of that starting lineup, or coming off the bench, whatever role that they need him to do. Nearly 15 a game and a career high in 3-point percentage. He always could shoot the basketball. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me at all. But the role that he's played, being consistent and just being healthy for that team, that they've now won 6 in a row. They're starting to figure it out. And Grayson Allen's definitely a big reason why.
For sure. Yeah, Grayson Allen definitely does not get enough love as he deserves from a number standpoint because of his character that everybody's accustomed to, but he's been balling for the Phoenix Suns. Just a couple other entries. We've got my guy, Not Paulo 9. He said Zubac, Hardenstein, and Nobi all up there for me. All really great choices. Zubac, especially, he's been a key reason as to why the Clippers have gone on a tear and looking like the title favorites, in my opinion, right now. And we also have my guy, Rhyme Sayer, keeping it in that Clippers runs right there. He's had Norman Powell. He's a splash maker for the Clips. And also Nick Claxton, who's trying to keep the Nets alive. Both really good choices right there. But appreciate you guys for always tuning into my story and dropping your entries. Like I said, a great way to keep me and Caleb giving us another segment to the show and just to keep you guys in the loop here. But moving on back over to the video where we're talking about the Terry Rozier trade, I'm going to take a quick look at the Hornets situation because it's pretty clear what they're doing here. They're trying to get money off of their books. They're trying to get a little bit younger, and they're ultimately trying to get LaMelo Ball to keep the ball in his hands as much as possible. So Terry was set to make over $21 million over the next 2 years, and he also has a partially guaranteed $26 million coming his way in 2026. LaMelo Ball is already on his own contract. There's a situation with Miles Bridges where they don't know what his future is going to be looking like, if they're going to try to re-sign him to that money that he was looking for 2 years ago, or if they're going to let him walk to maybe a team like the Pistons or even the Phoenix Suns, who are reported to have interest in him. So either way, they want to have their money ready for other guys like Jackson on their team. They also have Brandon Miller, like I said, who's a rookie, but already showing tons of promise. And last season, after those embarrassing losses that I talked about in the play-in tournament, they dropped to 27 and 55 just because of a lot of inconsistencies on their roster. They had guys in and out of the lineup, and it led to them drafting Brandon Miller after finishing as the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. Finally, we get to this season, and Brandon Miller is fitting in very well off the jump. You have Miles Bridges, who after his own 15-game suspension came back, and he was already dropping 20 bombs and hitting game winners. And LaMelo Ball, he was looking like one of the best point guards in the Eastern Conference. I had him right up there with Tyrese Halliburton to start off the year. He had a stretch over 10 games where he was averaging 33 points, 12 assists, and shooting over 40% from three. So he was performing. He seems to always step up his game whenever he's on national television. The dude's had cameras on him since, he was a teenager. But also, Terry Rozier was playing his best basketball when LaMelo Ball went down with an ankle injury, boosting up his averages to 25 points per game, 8 assists, and shooting around 38% from three. So, yeah, even though the two did help each other in terms of giving each other a break, it was clear that they both played a little bit better together when the other one isn't on the floor. And like I said, there were a lot of Hornets fans that were calling for Terry Rozier to either get traded or moved to the bench, and they wanted Brandon Miller starting in that backcourt with LaMelo, or at least playing in that small forward slot. So you make the move, you trade for Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick. First-round picks, like I said, you can never go wrong with the Miami Heat. They're still going to be solid for the next couple of years. Even if Jimmy Butler starts to regress, you still have Bam Adebayo, who's up there with the best defensive anchors in the league. You have Jaime Jaquez, who is just getting things started, and they just took one of your own guys, Terry Rozier. So it's not like that first-round pick is going to have like some crazy lottery value right there, but it can never hurt to have on your side. You keep getting those young players together or package it up into a different move. And then you also get Kyle Lowry, who is only getting up there in age. He's not getting any younger. He's not going to, go back to that Toronto production, but he is on an expiring deal. Instead of having to pay Terry for the next couple of years, you bring on Kyle Lowry. It's already been reported that the Hornets are looking to move him. And if you aren't able to get a deal done, then you just keep him on your roster, have him mentor LaMelo Ball a little bit for the rest of the season, and then he's free to go wherever he likes in the offseason if a buyout isn't agreed upon during this little period. Wow, the CBA has their own rules now of when stuff could get done. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, Caleb, just looking at the Hornets situation right now, do you think that that's probably going to be their number one priority, getting Kyle Lowry away, or do you think there's a chance that he could stay?
I think it's going to be similar to what the Jazz did to Russell Westbrook last season after that Lakers trade. I believe he's going to get bought out. Honestly, I don't see any reason to stay. He definitely does not fit their timeline, being 37 and all. And another guy that I feel like could be bought out. I know that you mentioned him. Maybe Gordon Hayward could as well.
Big GD Hayward.
Yeah. Obviously that leg injury really just hurt his chances to blossom into a multi-time All-Star, because he was really good for the Jazz in 2017, and
he was awesome.
Just the expectations for him super high, pairing with Kyrie and the young duo of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and obviously things have just gone south ever since. And he got a big bag from Charlotte, and that's great. Once again, never going to fault a player for getting their bag, but it just sucks to see sort of the athleticism get sapped from that horrible ankle injury, and his career not necessarily panning out in terms of accolades that we would have liked to see from a player of his previous caliber. So
I
what are your thoughts on
bring up Gordon Hayward in this mix? Because he's a very similar situation, expiring deal. He's owed $31 million this year, so there is a world where he does get bought out, and then the Hornets could clear even more money off of their books and prepare themselves better for the future. Because let's face it, even though LaMelo is hooping, he's back and healthy again. Even though Brandon Miller is up there with some of the best rookies in the league, and Mark Jackson continues to improve down low, the Hornets, they're probably not going to make the play-in tournament this season, and I'm not sure if that's territory that they want to be in after the last 2 times that they were there. So, keep letting LaMelo get his reps, let him get accustomed with everybody. But it's already been confirmed by multiple reports that everybody on the team is open to be traded, not named LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Mark Jackson. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens here in Charlotte. There is a world where they could get that money together and then try to sign some win-now talent in the offseason to pair with LaMelo Ball, because, let's face it, the dude did sign that contract, but we've seen a number of young stars in recent years grow unhappy and has to be moved. And Charlotte being one of the smallest markets in the league, you don't want to see that happen. We saw the mess that they were in after Kemba left. So, you want to hold on to your superstars. You want to make them happy. And point guards of his height, that's the future of the league. So you want to keep someone that you already have on your team in that case. And like the Gordon Hayward situation too is interesting, because he's one of the only veterans on the team, and that's a team that I think everybody thinks that should have some more veterans, watching over them, keep an eye on them. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what Charlotte does next, but it was a great move financial wise to get Terry off the books. I know he was super close with the rest of the guys, and they all had fun playing together. But Caleb, you broke it down perfectly. He's going to be a great fit in Miami.
Yeah, definitely more of a great fit. And to touch on sort of the Charlotte point in terms of veterans, just sort of the allegations and criminal activity that a couple of them gotten into. We don't need to touch on Miles Bridges. Everybody knows that story already. Horrifying stuff. Honestly, I was surprised that they even brought him back. Not just that, but the fact that the league didn't necessarily suspend him for longer. Wild stuff there. And that's not to mention, James Bouknight and how he hasn't necessarily panned out as a lottery pick on top of the stuff off the court. It's just got to get some vets in that room for Charlotte, but not necessarily a desirable market, and they just seem super down bad right now, just in terms of sports in general. Panthers just finished with the worst record in the NFL, and they traded away their first round pick for this year, so you don't even have the possibility of drafting Caleb Williams or anything. So just rough times in Charlotte, sports wise for sure. So
no, facts, 100%. Hopefully we see some upticks in the very near future. LaMelo's probably the top 3 favorite player of mine, so I want to see him get some help. And just keep Brandon Miller, keep Jackson with him, and I think they're going to be solid, and they just got to make some good decisions in the offseason. Michael Jordan isn't in that same role that he was in before, making pretty bad decisions. So, hopefully we see some improvements there. But, shout out to Miami Heat. Like we said, they've fallen asleep at trade deadlines year after year, fallen asleep in the offseason. So it's great to see them make a move that is only going to improve the team. Kyle Lowry, as much as we love him, he wasn't helping much anymore. Scary Terry is going to be back in a winning situation, and he's going to play Boston, I believe, very, very soon. I think they're on the schedule.
That Boston game,
that's going
to be interesting.
He always brings his best against Boston. So, shout out Terry, shout out Kyle Lowry, shout out everybody involved in the trade, and shout out the trade deadline, guys. Like I said, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be coming at you guys with all the breaking news. Most likely a Doc Rivers video coming very, very soon in honor of Caleb. He's going to have a lot to say. So, smash that notification bell so you don't miss Caleb's rant. But thank you guys for tuning in. Caleb, my man, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man.